All right, good morning. I'm going to ask you to please rise for the presentation of colors and the Pledge of Allegiance presented by the Air Force Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps of Hemet High School and the pledge by Cadet Airman Joseph Carnelia, under the direction of Chief Valentine.
Forward. Heart. Colors. Hope. Arms.
Please place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Port. Arms.
So once again, welcome to the Hemet Unified School District for this morning's State of the District Address. My name is Darrell Hanson, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources here at Hemet Unified. Some quick thank yous before we get started. Once again, we want to say thank you to the Hemet High School Air Force ROTC for not only the presentation of colors, but the greetings that took place out front of our school. And I'm sure we're all enjoying the snacks and the breakfast that we had. A big thank you to our nutrition services for the Hemet Unified School District. They always do just an outstanding job. So if you'd join me in a round of applause for those groups. Okay, we're not going to hold you back any longer. We're going to get started. At this time, I'd like to introduce the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Ms. Tracy Chambers.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We're so excited to have you all here today. Before we begin, I would like to introduce some special people in the room. First, starting off with our Board of Education. We have our Board President, Ross Valenzuela. Trustee Megan Haley. Trustee Jean Heichel. Trustee Patrick Searle, and Trustee Rob Davis. We also have a large number of dignitaries in the room, and we again would like to thank you for being here this morning. We are very excited, although he was not able to physically be here today, our State Superintendent, Tom Torlakson, has sent us a message.
Hi, I'm Tom Torlakson, California's State Superintendent of Public Instruction. Thank you all for being here. Hemet's commitment to excellence in education is outstanding. I like your goal. The Hemet Unified School District is striving to become the premier choice district. Your team believes that every child in the Valley deserves a world-class education. Hemet educators are focused on providing exceptional teaching and learning, building systems of support, all the while reaching and teaching the whole child. I want to commend Superintendent Christy Barrett and her team for the keen focus on continuous improvement. Thank you all, the Hemet team, for your hard work and dedication towards the success of all of your 22,000 students. Keep up the wonderful work.
Okay, good morning again to everybody. I'm Vince Christakos, the Assistant Superintendent for Business Services for the school district. And at this point in the program, what we're going to do is take a little look back as to what we've done. So there's about a 4-minute video, and it's going to give you a lot of information, so you got to pay real close attention so you can see it all, because it's going to go fast. And so there'll be a test afterwards, too, just to make sure you're paying attention. So we're going to go ahead and roll this video, and it gives you a lot of stuff about what we've been doing, what we've been up to, sort of a look back, and then we'll talk about what we're doing going forward. Thank you. I was going to ask if anybody remembers how many languages are spoken. 34, very good. You were paying attention, thank you. So next up is our wonderful Dr. Karen Valdez, who's our Assistant Superintendent for Student Services, and she's going to give you some information about what's going on at the state.
Good morning. What a pleasure it is to be here, and we thank you on behalf of our 22,000 students that you are here to support the work that we are doing here in Hemet. And I would like to, as a state board member, I was appointed by the Governor of California to share with you some of the work that the California State Board of Education is doing on behalf of the students in California. The State Board of Education was put into place in about the 1850s, and in 1884, it was amended to the Constitution. And it is both the Constitution and regulations, statutes, that define the duties and the obligations that the State Board of Education performs. We're an 11-member strong team. 10 of the members are appointed by the governor, and those 10 members are pending approval, if you will, confirmation from the Senate by a 2/3 majority vote. There is a full-time board member who is a student. The person is a California high school senior. They apply annually, and they serve, and they have the full voting rights and privileges that other state board members have, and it is wonderful to have that student voice at the state level. In addition, the State Board of Education has an executive director. The executive director kind of takes care of the work as we are doing our work together, and right now it is Karen Staff Walters, and she also serves on the governor's cabinet. We also have the state superintendent, and he gave us a message today, and he sits with us at state board meetings. We meet every other month for 2 full days, discussing a multitude of things, and it is a pleasure to have him represent the California Department of Education. We have many different responsibilities. Of course, the classic responsibilities of identifying standards, creating frameworks, identifying instructional materials that are aligned to the standards, and assessments. We also put together, with staff support and help, the federal plan, which is now called the Every Student Succeeds Act. In addition, we also have regulations that we look at. Charters play a big part in the role in terms of some of the work that the state board does. We look at appeals that come to the state level, as well as we have charters that have been approved statewide by the California State Board of Education. We also look at funding allocations. A lot of times it's coming from the federal funding and the distribution. We look at studies, just like local boards, our board members have study sessions, we have study sessions. We also look at waivers when local education agencies and districts or charters are asking for a little bit of relief or a little bit of change in something that is put in statute or as a regulatory requirement. And then we also look at district organization when one district maybe wants to take a portion of another district, and so we look at whether or not in a hearing, whether or not that is appropriate and that it meets the statutory regulations. And then finally we have liaison responsibilities. So part of the idea and the framework that we are working with is to engage with as many stakeholders as possible, as many shareholders, parents, community, advocates, to ensure that we are representing the entire state of California. So this is a list here of some of the state board committees and commissions. My initial work at the state level was being on the California Practitioner Advisory Group. That is up there, that's called CPAG, and it helps in the transition of the federal plan to the state plan. That was part of the work of that committee. So this is an idea of engaging everyone, as many as possible, and they are appointed by state board to serve on these commissions and committees. The Assembly and the Senate also, they're the ones that really set the legislation in terms of the laws that are coming forth and put forth to the governor, and they have a huge influence, the Education Committee of the Assembly and the Education Committee of the Senate, in terms of some of the work that we are doing. So 40 years ago, I'm going to take you on a trip, Jerry Brown was governor of the state of California, and Michael Kirst was the president of the State Board of Education. 40 years later, Jerry Brown is governor of the state of California, and Michael Kirst is the president of the State Board of Education. And what I bring to you today is just to let you know that for the last few years, we have had really tight alignment. It's unusual that the governor, the State Board of Education, and the superintendent of instruction at the state level are all aligned in the work, and that has afforded us the opportunity to move forward the initiatives at the state level. It was a pleasure to be sworn in, if you will, by Dr. Michael Kirst. He really is, I will call, a rock star in education. So even though you're appointed by the governor, you still have to go through a Senate confirmation process, and that is not for the faint of heart. I learned through the process. So first of all, you are given a lengthy script of questions to answer based on policy and decisions that you might have been partaking in during the broadcasted state board meetings. And so you answer the questions, and then you are interviewed by the Senate Rules Committee. The Senate Rules really plays an important role in the work that the Senate actually does. So you are interviewed by them, and then you're interviewed by some of the Senate Rules Committee members, and then you sit in a hearing where they interview you and ask you questions about your thoughts and your beliefs as you would serve on the State Board of Education, and you're actually serving when this process is going on. And then after that, they take a vote, and they recommend you to go to the floor of the Senate, and you would need to have a 2/3 majority on the floor, and which I did receive. And I have to say, this was a proud moment for me in my career to have that, and I think of my parents when I think of that slide, and I get a little teary-eyed because they supported me in my educational venture, and this was never on my radar, so I humbly serve. So the Department of Education, the State Board is the one that sets their policy. They're the governing board, if you will, and as well as they set policies for the work that the California Department of Education does. For the last 10 years or so, we have been developing a system, and that system is very important. It's not a thing, it's a system, and it has 4 main components. The first component was an overhaul in 2013 of our financing, how we finance public schools. And the finance is called, the new program is called the Local Control Funding Formula. It removed revenue limits, and it took away 50 different categorical programs that were very fragmented. And it replaced it with a tiered system of base funding for all students. And if you had, you received supplemental funding for your English learners, your low income, and your foster youth. And if a district had concentrated numbers of those students over 55%, then you would receive additional funds. So it was base, supplemental, and concentration. It simplified everything, and it really put the onus on the local control. Where do you want to spend those dollars in your local context? The state said, we're going to give you this money. That's the first part of the system. With the money, you have to address 8 priorities. There are 10 up here because county offices of education. Mr. Hovey, you have to do that. But those are for county, the light blue ones are. But they're nested together in 3 different categories: conditions of learning, student outcomes, and engagement. And this is really the framework, if you will, of the work that we are doing. So we had the money, we had the priorities, and we had to show both of those in our local control accountability plan. This is an effort at the local level to have a plan that is approved by our local board that shows our priorities and our actions and services based around data, based on outcomes, and ensuring that we are meeting the needs of all students, especially our supplemental and concentration funded students. So finally, in the 4th part of the system is that now that we have a plan, how are we doing with that plan? So the dashboard, the California dashboard, and by the way, the new version comes out in November, is going to help all of us understand how schools are doing, how student groups are doing, and how the system is doing. And it is public, and it is available for everyone to see, and all of the reporting out is all around those priorities. So we had the money, we had the priorities, we have the plan, and we have a way of being accountable to the plan. So as we are looking at this is all about local control, that the context of the work at the individual district is so important that we know better than someone up in Sacramento in terms of what they are going to make us do, that we can set our priorities based on this common framework. So in addition to that, as we are working together, we know we are going to need differentiated assistance. So this is an infographic that kind of captures the state's structure, if you will. Around that circle is that we have the one system. The light blue and the green and the orange show those 3 areas of the priorities, and the priorities are in the wheel. And at the center of that is cradle to career. That idea that we are really addressing the needs of the whole child. It is not just academic, it is behavior as well as social emotional learning. All of those complete the work that we need to do for our students. So California has 10,000 schools, approximately 1,000 districts. We have county offices as part of the infrastructure to help districts. We also have the California Department of Education. We have the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence, CCEE, or I like to call it C2E2. And our own Superintendent Barrett is actually on the advisory board for the California Collaborative. And these are agencies and entities that can help districts get better at the work and come alongside as we are doing our work. So that is the state plan, but at the same time, we have an obligation to the federal plan that we have to put into place. Some of you might remember No Child Left Behind. When that sunsetted, it was reauthorized, and with the reauthorization of the No Child Left Behind it is now called Every Student Succeeds Act. And the Every Student Succeeds Act is a requirement for every state to put into place. We now have our plan approved. It took 4 iterations at the U.S. Department of Education to get our plan approved. And through the approval process, we wanted to keep in mind this picture, that the bulk of our budget is really state funded, that $88 billion come from the state and only $8 billion come from the federal side. We are not saying that that money isn't important, but we wanted to keep this in balance in our plan, that our state plan drove the work that we were doing and that we would meet the federal requirements along the way because it was a good plan. Welcome, students. We love having you here. So there have been many shifts. One of the big shifts is that from the accountability, the old No Child Left Behind, that they're going to come down and take over. That's not the thing. The thing is to come alongside, and I showed you some samples of some of the groups that come alongside and help us. We have about 6.5 million students in California, and we have about 1.5 English learners. We have a heavy lift. We have a big responsibility in terms of meeting the needs of all of our diverse population here in this state. So it is a true honor to be at the table when we are setting policy at the state level. But I want you to know that when we make decisions, the lens that I have is my Hemet experience here in terms of bringing forward some of the context to help make decisions in the best way possible. So I like to tell my colleagues that I take policy to practice because I am the only sitting state board member right now who is in a K-12 public education setting. Most of them are retired policy people, charter people, wonderful people. We have some CTA, California Teacher Association member, and some others. But it is important that we have the context of the work that we're doing because the decisions we make, we come back and have to put into place. And it's very important to have that context. So it is a pleasure to serve on the State Board of Education, and it is a deeper pleasure to be here in Hemet and to do the work that we have to do, knowing that we have a reciprocal relationship in the work that we're doing, and we couldn't do it with all of you here without all of you here today. So we thank you. Thank you. And next, I'd like to introduce our superintendent, Christy Barrett.
So we are very fortunate to have the team that we have here in Hemet. And I want to acknowledge not only the professionals that we have within our district, but also our school board. So today, my part is to be able to share with you the journey that we've been on the last 2 years. And I will tell you, it's exciting. It's taking us to some amazing places, but we absolutely could not do the work that we're doing without the support of our board. The way of the district goes the way of the board. And so I hope they know how deeply I appreciate their support, and I hope that you as community members and educators and students also find today that we're doing some great things on behalf of our students and community. So with that, I am gonna do a little bit of a plug, and that I try to get out the good word. So if you're not following me, please do. Christy Barrett at Hemet Super on Twitter, and hopefully we'll have a Facebook account coming to you soon. So that's my plug for the day. It's the only one you get. I want to start by telling a little bit of our story. You've heard now it said a couple of times, both in the message from Tom Torlakson, you've heard it from each of the individuals that were up at the podium earlier, about this notion of being premier. There's a story that's attached to that, and it continues to drive the work that we're doing here in Hemet Unified. My very first year, we had the opportunity, myself and my extended cabinet, to have a personal conversation with Dr. Carl Cohn. And at the time, Dr. Cohn was the executive director for the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence. And you heard Karen speak about that organization this morning. I'm also retired superintendent out of Long Beach, served as a professor at USC, UCLA, as well as Claremont Graduate University. And when he came and he spoke with us, he really didn't tell us much of anything, but he asked us a lot of questions that caused us to reflect, and it was such a meaningful engagement. And one of the things that he asked us was, is Hemet Unified the default system in education? And that was a very profound question. And unfortunately, our response needed to be yes. We are the default system. We are a system that is in place because of a particular set of boundaries where students live, and they just simply come. It's not because they're making the choice to do so, it's because we're the default system. And so that lit a fire under us, if you will, and we made a decision during that interaction that we wanted to become the premier choice. And what that means is that we want to provide an exceptional educational experience for every child, for every family that walks through our doors. We want them to want to be here because we offer something special. We want to be the district where families are coming to the Valley because they hear about the great things that we do, and they want their children to be a part of it, and they want to be value added to the community. For us, that is what the term premier means. It's not intended to be a catchphrase or a short-term logo attached to Hemet Unified. It is intended to be the aspirational goal that drives all things that we do. Because we see ourselves as part of the bigger whole, we see ourselves as an instrumental part of the community, and we're here to make a difference, not only in the lives of our students, but in the lives of all of those who reside in our valley. We know that people leave communities when their educational system is not sound. And we know that people sell their homes and move elsewhere because they want to be part of a school district that offers something exceptional. And so as you leave here today and you go and be an ambassador for our district, I hope that you carry with you that message of that we want to be premier. And the reason for that one is because we're here to serve in the best interest of our community and our students. So with that, I want to take you on a little bit of a journey in terms of how we are leading the work to become premier. Often, we will be compared in education, private sector versus public sector, and yes, there are absolutely some differences. But when you're on a journey to be exceptional, there are also a lot of similarities in terms of what makes an organization high performing. So we're going to get ready to make that segue, but this is an article that I was exposed to in a ongoing, it's a year-long professional development that myself and our administrators are going through, and actually Mr. Jason Kress is participating as well. And this was an article that was brought forth to us, giving us some context of where we reside as a nation within the global context of what we do in education. And Thomas Friedman, he's a multiple-time Pulitzer Prize winner. And what he talks about is that the average is officially over, and how middle-class jobs are getting squeezed out of our nation as a result of automation and other things that are happening as it relates to industry and technology. And so also as we see our work, we don't see it just in terms of reading, writing, and math. We see it as what are we doing to prepare our seniors to leave Hemet Unified and then transition into the global marketplace, if you will, being directly into a career or into a college setting. And so this is part of our why. It's important that you know that our why extends beyond 12th grade. I want to show you briefly a video that I think further articulates this notion of average officially being over.
Our country is on the road to becoming an automation nation, quite literally on the road. Our Money Issue cover story is from David Pogue of Yahoo Finance.
Tony Hughes has been a long-haul truck driver for more than 20 years. But today, all he has to do is sit back and relax.
Okay, Rosebud is on.
Woohoo! We're hauling 20,000 pounds of freight down the Florida Turnpike in a self-driving robotic truck. It's been retrofitted with a self-driving kit made by Starsky Robotics. Kartik Tiwari and Stefan Seltz-Oxmacher founded the company in 2016.
We think that sometime towards the end of the year, we could be doing this run without a person behind the wheel.
This year?
Yeah.
Self-driving trucks this year.
Yep.
And if it's not his company, it might be Otto, whose truck made headlines last October by driving itself across Colorado to deliver a shipment of beer. Otto is owned by Uber, which has also been testing self-driving taxis in Pennsylvania and Arizona. But here's the thing. Once our trucks and taxis drive themselves, what will happen to the people who used to do those jobs? In the U.S., that's 180,000 taxi drivers, 600,000 Uber drivers, and 3.5 million truck drivers.
We really need to start to think very seriously about this.
Martin Ford is the author of Rise of the Robots.
This is it.
He says driverless cars and trucks are just the beginning of a wave of automation that will threaten millions of jobs in every industry at once, like America's nearly 5 million store workers. Amazon is testing its first Amazon Go grocery store in Seattle. The company says shoppers there will soon be able to walk into the store, take what they want, and walk out again without ever encountering an employee. Sensors will detect what you take and bill you automatically.
The cashiers are totally gone. You're going to end up with the equivalent of a Walmart with, a handful of employees. You scale that out, and that's just extraordinarily disruptive.
You name an occupation, and there's somebody considering a robot to take it over.
Look how delicate. Perfect every time.
At Zoom Pizza in Silicon Valley, 4 specialized robots help make the pizza. Eventually, the company plans to replace the remaining humans on the line, too. Here's Zoom's Chief Technology Officer, Josh Goldberg.
You would think there would be some Roman pizza chefs who'd say, no, this is not the way it's been done since our ancestors.
Well, the world changes. There's a lot of other things we don't do just the way our ancestors did either.
The common wisdom is that robots primarily threaten repetitive blue-collar jobs. Not so, says Martin Ford.
We're seeing dramatic advances in the area of computers analyzing tumors, recognizing medical scans, mammograms, and being able to find disease. We're seeing, algorithms move into areas like journalism, for example.
Wait. Certainly not journalism.
Oh, yeah, absolutely journalism. By one account, every 30 seconds, there's a news story published on the web or maybe in a newspaper that's machine generated.
Algorithms are even threatening the masters of the universe. Earlier this year, BlackRock, the world's largest money manager, announced that it's laying off dozens of human stock pickers and replacing them with robots. By 2025, across the financial industry, artificial intelligence is expected to replace 230,000 human workers.
Bring on the disruption that is automation.
Alicia Wiesel is the Chief Information Officer at Goldman Sachs. The company now hires nearly as many computer engineers as financial workers.
In the movie Wall Street, they would have been barking, buy, 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 into the phone.
Yes, and now they're going click, 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 type, type, type.
See the famous Goldman Sachs trading floor? Well, a quarter of these people aren't traders. They're coders, writing software to automate the routine grunt work of employees all across the company.
Someday, could software replace the functions of these folks?
That's a great question. I don't think anybody knows the answer.
All right, we get it. No job is safe. According to one recent study, 47% of American jobs could be lost to automation in the next 20 years. Martin Ford says it's time to start thinking about what we're going to live on in the post-robot economy.
One of the best ideas out there is some kind of a universal basic income or a guaranteed minimum income.
And this is where everybody gets, let's say, $10,000 a year just for being alive.
Right. I think a better way to think of it is in terms of the idea that we've built this tremendously prosperous society. Everyone ought to have, if you're a citizen at least, some sort of ownership stake in this.
But the purpose of having a job is not just to have income. It's also meaning and purpose and a place to go every day.
That's right. That's going to be a real challenge, yes it is. But I think it's a challenge we can solve.
But wait. Most experts do agree that automation will soon take over millions of our jobs. But they don't all agree that that will mean mass unemployment.
History has suggested that the pessimists have been wrong time and time again.
Including MIT economist David Autor.
The last 200 years, we've had an incredible amount of automation. We have tractors that do the work that horses and people used to do on farms. So we don't dig ditches by hand anymore. We don't pound tools out of wrought iron. We don't do bookkeeping with books. But this has not, in net, reduced the amount of employment.
He also points out that the changes won't happen overnight.
I'm sure 20 years from now, almost no one will be driving a vehicle. Young people are forward-looking, and they say, well, I guess I'm not going to have a driving career, so I'm not going to go there.
Well, except that these young people might think, well, maybe I'll go into retail, but that's also going away. Well, maybe I'll be a chef, but that's also going away. Well, maybe I'll be a paralegal, but that's also going away.
So let's do the following thought exercise. It's the year 1900, and 40% of all employment is in agriculture, right? And so some twerpy economist from MIT teleports back in time to Farmer Pogue here and says, 100 years from now, only 2% of people will be working in agriculture. What do you think the other 38% of people are going to do?
Well, I wouldn't know.
We say, oh, search engine optimization, health and wellness, software and mobile devices. Most of what we do barely existed 100 years ago.
In other words, just because we can't predict what we'll be doing doesn't mean we'll be doing nothing. And sure enough, despite having replaced so many stock traders with software, Alicia Wiesel says that Goldman Sachs still employs the same number of people and that their jobs have been enhanced by automation.
And all of a sudden, that young person is engaging with the client on their actual problems, rather than being stuck till 1 a.m. doing nothing but manning several different spreadsheets and trying to corral all this data together.
You'll hear the same argument at Starsky Robotics. Its trucks will self-drive only on the highways. The company will still employ human drivers, but they'll sit in front of screens, driving the trucks by remote control once they're off the highway. And if Tony Hughes can keep his job without the weeks away,
So in that aspect, it's going to make my life better.
If you get hired to be one of the pilots, the remote control pilots, right?
True. Well, he's on the top of the list.
So, since this might be my last chance to be in a truck with a human driver, I had to ask.
Will you?
Yeah, I will.
Yes! Yes!
I'd like to see a robot do that.
I share this with you because I want to give you some context. There's actually two parts to our day together this morning. The first is I am going to provide you context in terms of our journey and why we're on it. And obviously there's urgency, not only for Hemet Unified, but for us as a nation, and we contribute to that. The other part of our why today is that we are in the process of developing our district's vision. And I'm going to speak more to that later, but I think it's important that you have our context so that you can participate in that portion of our morning. So we are going to put you to work here in just a little bit. So we are on a journey of whole system reform. And the work that the state has been doing as it relates to the local control funding formula and the local control accountability plan have set us up very nice to do that. Part of our journey, and I mentioned this briefly prior to going to the video, is that we're often, there's this difference that exists between the public and private sector, between business and education. And I do acknowledge that there are differences, but there's also a lot of similarities, as I said. And when you're developing something that's exceptional, of a high level of quality, where reliability exists along with consistency, the structures and the systems that are in place are very similar between both the private and the public sector, if you will. And so our journey here in Hemet Unified is very much being guided by the work of the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award. And I know that in the title it says award, but it's not about the award. It's about what it means to have the systems in place to be able to receive such an accomplishment. The Malcolm Baldrige Award, it was established back in the 80s because there was a realization by the federal government that for the U.S. to remain competitive in a global marketplace, we had to ramp up our game, right? We needed to be doing things better, more effectively, and we needed to be able to sustain what we're putting in place. And so as a result of that, the Improvement Act of 1987 made the Malcolm Baldrige Award part of our story here in the United States. So we are on a quest for organizational excellence. And if you were to look at the framework, the Baldrige criteria, what it talks about is this integrated approach in organizational excellence.
And what that means is it talks about that we are always improving what it is that we're offering to our customers and to our stakeholders. So as community members, as business leaders, you are one of our stakeholders or customers, if you will. So are our families and so are our students. And so how are we ever improving what it is that we're offering? The other piece of this is just simply overall effectiveness. And so we're measured on the dashboard, as Dr. Valdez had mentioned to you, but there's other pieces also locally that we're measured by in terms of our level of performance, and we want to continually increase our proficiency. And then last, when we're talking about this integration, if you will, we're also recognizing that we are an organization that values learning, both organizational learning as well as personal learning. So we have a commitment to that. I mentioned earlier that the article that I shared, that came out of some professional development from the National Institute of School Leadership, that myself, along with many administrators in our district, that's an annual commitment. And we are committed to that, not only for our personal growth, but also for the growth of our organization. When we talk about an integrated approach, this also comes from the Malcolm Baldrige criteria, and it's something that is driving our work. You can see the arrows as you move from the top left to the bottom right. And we're working towards the bottom right because that is where the mature processes exist. We do not want to be in a space where we have these random arrows. That tells you that the system is not working, there's not efficiency in the system, there's not effectiveness in the system, and there are a lot of different processes and systems that make up the whole. And so how do you go about analyzing those things, if you will, and then improving them as you recognize where there's areas of opportunity? And so slowly but surely we are peeling back the layers of the onion, if you will, and identifying where there's opportunities and constantly seeking ways to align the systems work and the processes that we have here within our school district. It was probably back in May that I presented this to our principals, and I had them analyze just a very small chunk of our work and where we have gone, if you will, over the past 2 years. And what I'm very pleased to say is that from their perspective, we started very much in the top left, and many of them now identify that we're in the early systematic approaches, or in some cases even the aligned approaches. So we're continually moving to that bottom right quadrant. The Baldrige model, as I mentioned, it's a framework, and it is based on these core values and concepts that you will find in high-performing organizations. When you think of Nordstrom's, when you think of Southwest Airlines, when you think of the Ritz-Carlton, these are places that have it dialed in. They have a good understanding of what it means to be effective as an organization, and those practices are very much part of the culture. The ones that are highlighted, these are the ones, not that any part of the framework is not being addressed, but these are the ones that we've been most intentionally working on during the past 2 years. To give you some examples with a systems perspective, we've now implemented system-wide a model of continuous improvement. And when I say continuous improvement, we're basing that on the cycle of plan, do, study, act. We create a plan, we implement the plan, we use data to study the plan, and then based on what we found during that study process, we then act upon it and make some changes. Not only are we doing that at the district level, but each one of our sites and departments are also participating in this continuous improvement model. I'm very pleased to announce that on October 16th, Riverside County Office of Education has their annual education summit, and Hemet Unified School District will be receiving a Models of Excellence Award for the work that we've been doing in continuous improvement. Student-centered excellence, obviously that's the core of our business. And I will tell you that I am so honored and blessed to be part of this organization, because I have never worked with a group of people who are more willing and wanting to change in a heartbeat and do things different as a result of what is needed for our kids. All things that we do are student-centered. An example of this, there are some adjustments that we've made as it relates to our funding and to our LCAP. And this past year, for example, we now have reading interventionist specialists at the majority of our elementary schools to serve students K through 5. That is something that I would absolutely say I don't think is the norm. And I think it's very important to acknowledge that Hemet Unified has recognized the importance of literacy, and we've made that type of commitment to it. Organizational learning and agility. I've already shared with you some of the work that we're doing around our participation in NISL, but we're constantly learning. This year we recognized, obviously we know that our principals, our teachers, and our classified staff, they are the ones who are closest to the work. At the district office, we tend to hallucinate because we're away from the work. And so it's important for us to get continual feedback from those who are closest to our students. In doing that, one of the gaps that we recognized is that we needed to provide more tools in the tool bag of our principals and being able to be instructional leaders at their school sites. And so as a result of that, our educational services department, along with student services, now have a monthly leadership development opportunity for both our primary and secondary principals. Valuing people. We do a lot of work around this. I make it a point at least once annually to get to every staff and every department to have a staff meeting for the purpose of getting input. Not for talking at people, but to hear from people. And so my first year here, I did an activity with all staff called Start, Stop, Continue. And I asked every staff member, what is it that the district isn't doing that you would like for us to start doing on behalf of students? What is it that you would like us to stop doing because it's driving you bonkers and it's not good for kids? And what is it that you would like for us to continue doing because it is good for kids and you want me as the superintendent to be aware of those pieces? As a result of that, we established goals, and I'm going to share with you how those have evolved in just a few moments. But that feedback was critical. As a result of that, I was able to come back to our assistant superintendents and to our board, and we had a very thoughtful discussion about the need for curriculum. And that same year, we did a math adoption in elementary, and we adopted Eureka Math. So that is the power of valuing people and getting their input. Last year, we did a more formal launch around this notion of being premier. And every employee had an opportunity to contribute. What does it mean to be in a premier school district? And I'm going to share the results of that with you in just a bit. But the question that we asked was, what is it that you will always and never see, hear, and feel in a premier district? And I'm going to share the outcomes of that with you. And then this year, I'm going to every site and every department, and I'm asking for their input related to the district's vision. And you're going to have an opportunity to contribute to that today as well. The last two pieces, focusing on success and management by fact. Obviously, all of these things go hand in hand, but the term focusing on success, we are very data-driven. And we are facing the brutal facts, and we're managing our daily actions, as you will, as a result of what the data is telling us. The state, although we're very appreciative of the work that's been done with the California dashboard, we know as a result of the feedback that we received that data does not come frequent enough, and we were not able to disaggregate it and access it in a way that was meaningful for us. So as a result of that, the improvement that's been now made in our system is that we use a platform called Tableau, and our Ed Services team and Dr. Ballard have produced an exceptional product where our principals, our school site teams, and our teams here at the district level can access all types of data to help inform the decision making that we partake in. So I wanted to give you context in terms of the work that's guiding us in being involved in the journey of whole system reform, but we would not be able to completely partake in that journey, if you will, if we didn't have the local control to do so. And that is why the local control funding formula is such a critical part of the work that we do, because it has given autonomy to school districts to be able to make choices that we believe is going to be in the best interest of our students. We take that work to heart. We're very determined to do great by our kids, and it's important that we have quality systems in place to make sure that we are being good stewards of the financial resources that have been given to us to improve the lives of the children we serve. And so as Dr. Valdez mentioned earlier, it is landmark legislation, and it has absolutely changed the world that we're in as it relates to public education here in California. So I'm going to tell you a little bit in terms of additional outcomes as we've began our journey, if you will, on the quest for excellence. Talked to you a little bit about the logo, but here are some further examples of the work that's come out of our systems work. Graduating all students college and career ready. If you want to talk about something that's controversial, just tell people that all kids will be college ready. It is amazing what comes out of that. Recently, we had a flyer that went out, and some of the feedback that we received was that essentially, you're crazy to think that all students will be college ready. It's not impossible. You need to let it go. And I'm summarizing, but unfortunately, that's some of the rhetoric that we hear frequently, and we see it more often than not. We here in Hemet Unified, we have made a very conscious decision that we are saying college and career ready. And the reason for that is it is not for us as the adults in the system to predetermine which children will and will not go to college. It is our responsibilities as the educators in Hemet Unified School District to prepare all students for whatever their journey may be after they exit Hemet Unified. It may be college, it may be career, it may be both. But we will not predetermine that for them. We are prepared to give them whatever they need to be successful as they transition out of 12th grade. So with that, there was a lot of work that needed to be done to begin to prepare the system. As I've shared with the board, and as our team knows as well, change takes time. So we just entered into year 3. We are projecting that by year 5, we will begin to see some significant growth as a result of the work that we're doing. And these are the 3 goals. These are the baskets, if you will, that we're putting our eggs into. And this is an example of the alignment that we have in the system. Teaching and learning, it's the goal for every single department, every single school site in our district. Systems of support, culture and climate. Those are the big 3, and I'm going to speak to those each in just a moment. In terms of teaching and learning, we want to provide high quality teaching and learning for all students. We know a lot about what makes individual school sites successful. We know a lot less about what makes whole systems successful. And we're determined that there's going to be a high level of consistency in the system, so no matter what school a child attends, they walk away with the same experiences and opportunities. So to do this, we are constantly in classrooms, myself, our principals, our extended and executive cabinet teams, as well as other directors here at the district office, we're in classrooms all the time, weekly. And that is very intentional, because how do you know what's happening as it relates to teaching and learning if you're not in classrooms? Systems of support. As you all know, we have a high level of need as it relates to the social, emotional, behavioral, and mental health needs of our students. And so our team here has designed what we are terming an integrated systems framework, where we are connecting our internal resources as well as our external resources to our children and to our families. An example is that we now have approximately 20 memorandums of understandings in place with a variety of social services and health providers throughout the Valley to provide services to our students as well as to their families. I'm very happy to say that on October 16th at Riverside County's Office of Education annual educational summit event, we will also be receiving a Models of Excellence for the work that we've been doing around the integrated systems framework. And last, culture and climate. We know that it's very difficult for the first 2 goals to happen if we don't have goal number 3. People have to want to be here. And so culture and climate, it's a big deal. And we want to make sure that we are absolutely providing an environment where families and students feel welcomed and a place that they enjoy being. There's a lot behind each one of these goals, and obviously we don't have time to go through them. You may fall asleep if I did, which we don't want that to happen. But I will tell you one thing that is very special that we're doing as it relates to this goal. We know that exclusionary discipline practices, such as suspension and expulsion, it changes the trajectory of some of the lives of our children. We know that that is not what's in the best interest of our children. As a result of that, and I'm not saying that those things shouldn't ever occur, because at times it is what it is, but we know that that should not be our go-to. That should not be the thing that we turn to first. And so as a result, our district has committed to putting in an alternative to suspension program, where rather than suspending students, we take them aside and we have an opportunity for learning around restorative practices. Last year, we piloted this program at Talkowitz High School, and the level of students that repeated was astounding. I think it was like 83% of the students who had been suspended did not have any further discipline issues for the balance of the year. And I may have my percentage wrong, but it was exceptionally high. And so as a result of the findings from that pilot program, this goes back to the Baldrige criteria, excellence, PDSA. As a result of all of that, we have now implemented ATS at all of our secondary schools, including middle and high school. College and career, we now know what that means. We like buzzwords, right? But we know that buzzwords don't mean much if we can't define what it means. And so college and career, that's a K-12 responsibility. It's not just a high school responsibility. So as a result of our work around continuous improvement, we now have a shared definition of what it means to be college and career ready at elementary, middle, and high school. In terms of next steps, we're committed to a relentless focus on improving student outcomes. Obviously, we have internal measures to look at that, but we want to be benchmarking. We want to benchmark not only against districts who are here within Riverside County, but further develop that benchmarking throughout the state, as well as comparing us to how students are performing nationwide. We also have a relentless focus on safety. It goes back into that culture and climate piece. We know that without safety, we will have obviously some things on our hands that will not be pleasant for any of us to experience. And so it plays directly into culture and climate, and we have an obligation to have our students and our staff be safe as they come to our schools every day. We're also committed to community partnerships, and I've spoke to you about that earlier. And as I transition through year 3 and into year 4 as the superintendent, I look forward to continuing to develop the partnerships and the strengths that we have between the district and other entities here in the Valley. It is very important, and as we become more proficient in what we do, I will be able to pivot as the superintendent and to be more actively involved in the community aspect of the work that we do. I already mentioned the Valley Internship Program. We're very committed to making this happen because we know it's great for our community as well as our students. And then last, and I've already touched on this briefly, is just increasing our presence in the community. Once again, these are just examples of things I want to share with you, because when we talk about those random arrows and we're moving them to be aligned, this is what we mean by doing that work. The last thing I'm going to leave you with before we transition here is our CTE. Okay, some of us may know that as vocational ed, but now we're in the world of career technical education. A little story here about this logo. Our students in Hamilton High School actually created this logo. We're very proud. It is absolutely beautiful, and it is on our brochure that we now use to talk about our CTE programs. This is very much a large need in our community, as well as in the Inland Empire. And so in this upcoming school year, our educational services team, they will be doing a needs assessment as related not only to what we're offering internally, but what is the need as it relates to the actual field. What is it that we're hearing from the field in terms of the skills that our students need to be gainfully employed if they were to go into the workforce directly leaving high school? The other thing that I would say about this is we're very happy about a partnership that we have with San Jacinto Unified, Mount San Jacinto College, as well as business leaders. We are in the process of putting together the Valley Internship Program, where our students will have an opportunity to actually intern in many of our businesses here locally in the Valley. And that actually came out of the work that was spearheaded from the Healthy Valley Foundation, and we're very appreciative of where that is headed now as a result of the collaborative effort. So with that, I've talked a lot, which I don't typically like to do, although some may not agree with that. I do have a video to show you of some of our students and what it means to be in a CTE program.
My name is Jesse. I'm currently attending Cal State San Marcos. I'm a graduate 2018 class of Talkwitz from last year. So I used to play football as a kid, and I got an injury my summer of my junior year. So after my injury, I was going through a lot of rehab with Miss Norma, our athletic trainer here. I heard that she was developing a CTE pathway, and I got more interested, and I was around the people that she was bringing in to start that group, and I found myself just getting drawn in, and I joined the program that year, and I fell in love with it. My senior year, Ms. Norma knew that I wanted to become a physical therapist, so she allowed me to build rehab plans for students who were injured through sports and stuff. So they would come in the clinic, and I would build a structured plan to hopefully get them back on the field within the 4 to 5 weeks or as soon as possible. So seeing these students and these athletes being able to go back and play from something that I did and I was able to accomplish was super, super fulfilling, and that's what I want to do. That feeling, I want that for the rest of my life.
Hello, my name is Stacy Gooddale. I am going to Mount San Jacinto Community College. I am in third year there and working on my associates. So right now I live on my own. I am self-sufficient. I live in my own apartment, 2-bedroom, pretty great. It is a little busy though because I am going to school part-time and I have 2 jobs. One of them does have to do with my schooling, and it's a staging job out in LA. It's really interesting. It's a lot of hard work, but it's kind of liberating. If it weren't for the classes that I took in theater, being the CTE class, I probably wouldn't have gotten half the jobs that I've applied for today. And that was a huge step because I didn't work until I was about 18. It was kind of frustrating because here I am, 18 years old, no work experience, so I thought. And then I realized I have all these classes that I can put on my resume, and that's what got me hired. So even though I don't have experience, I'm an 18-year-old just out of high school, I did. I had lots of experience, and I didn't even think about that until one of my parents had told me that I could put that on a resume. CTE really helped me be more social in a way that was better for my career, better in interviewing, better just one-on-one. It helped me in multiple areas of my life. I was really, really shy before. I couldn't even go on stage and audition. My first audition, I was a freshman. I was auditioning for Beauty and the Beast, for Belle, and I couldn't even finish my song. I started crying and shaking because I couldn't hear the music over my beating heart, and I ran off stage. Obviously, I didn't get the role, but that's where I came from. Now I go on stage and I can audition. I can talk to people at grocery stores. I can go into a job interview and feel totally confident about myself that I got this, And so I think CTE theater helped me in my social life as well as my career path. When people find out that I have been doing what I do, whether that's in makeup or scenic design or whatever, it doesn't matter what it is, if I say I've been doing this for a while, even though I'm really young, they kind of don't believe me. And then I'm like, no, I've been in CTE classes, which teaches you life skills that you learn that we're doing now that I learned in high school. So I learned it in high school and I've been applying it all through my life till now, and I'm only 21, so it's just really cool.
a small example of what we're doing to serve 22,000 students and our valley. And I don't know what it is about the letter, but it makes me get choked up every single time that I read it. We have exceptional kids, students, families, educators, and just very blessed to be a part of it. So we've talked a little bit about next steps. And part of next steps in being Premier is our students deserve the very best as it relates to facilities. And for us to be state of art, we also have to have facilities that can live up to that expectation. And so in July, the board did make a decision to place a bond measure on the November ballot, and it has now got the letter X, so it is Measure X. And so a couple of facts I would like to share with you as you may hear about this out in the community. And once again, we're asking you to be ambassadors for us, is that Measure X will not raise taxes. It is a tax extension. Passage will qualify our district for matching funds that we would not otherwise have an opportunity to receive. Measure X will be used to improve campus safety and security, and I spoke to that earlier and its importance as it relates to the work around culture and climate. It'll also renovate our CTE facilities and help us add new facilities as we do our needs analysis over the course of this year to determine what it is that is needed in the community and by business leaders. It'll help us repair deteriorated infrastructure and as well as modernize classrooms. And I want you to know that we will continue to be fiscally responsible and that there will be a Citizens Oversight Committee that will oversee the expenditures of the bond if we are successful in November. And so with that, we do hope that you join us on our quest to be Premier. And we're going to pivot now, and I'm going to ask us to get to work. So this might be slightly uncomfortable, but I think we only have an hour left, so it'll be short-term discomfort. And that is I'm going to ask you to be actively participating with me. So we talked about this road to excellence. Part of being an organization of excellence is having values and a vision. I don't know about you, but for myself, there are very few organizations that I've worked for where I could have told you their core values, let alone their vision, unless I went on their website, looked at it, probably had to write it down because it was too wordy to remember. And I am not embarrassed to admit this. One of the only places I can remember their core values that I worked for was Red Robin. Let's all say yum. Yum. You did not do that with me, but I won't hold you accountable for it. All right, so it's not that the district was without values, because certainly we had values, but we were without the capability of being able to say, what are the values that we share? If you know of a high-level performing organization, that culture is pervasive, and people can tell you what you value in the culture. The values are the belief system. It is the blood that runs through the veins. It is the guiding compass that gets you back on track when things do not go well. Because folks, we're a family, and what happens in families, sometimes things don't go well. So we need to be able to get back on track. And so with that, we went on a journey, and I had told you this earlier, see, hear, feel. What would you always and never see, hear, feel in a district that is Premier? And I've already talked about the importance of shared value. And from that, we got input from every site and every department within the organization. In May of last year, I brought together 70 classified and certificated employees, and we sat here in this room. No management were involved other than the fact that they facilitated the table groups, and they went through all of the input that we received from every site and every department. That information was synthesized into 8 core values that will be essentially the core values of the organization. I'm going to share those with you. Not going to read them. What you'll notice is that these are short phrases. And that's problematic because that means that they can be interpreted in a variety of ways. Similar to college and career, we have to define important terms. So what does it mean to have an inspired stakeholder? I may define that very different than someone else. So we want to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of what that means. So prior to that group of 70 stakeholders leaving the room that day in May, they had to answer 3 questions about each one of these values. The first question was, if we're actually living this value in the organization, what behaviors would you repeatedly see happening? The second question is, if you were to see these values being lived in our organization, what behaviors would be eliminated and you wouldn't see it? And then the last question that they had to answer is, what evidence would you expect to see as a result of living this value? The 70 individuals in the group gave input to these 3 questions, and then we called it a day. In July, a subgroup of that 70, it was about 20 of us, came together. They went through all of the input, from these 3 questions, along with the 8 core values that were initially defined from the larger group, and they synthesized them into our 5 core values. These core values, I am introducing it to our HUSD family as a soft launch because we do not have our vision. And that's what I'm going to ask you for your help with in just a few minutes here. Once we get the vision in place for the 1920 school year, we will be rolling this out very systematically, and then this will become what we're calling the district's basics. Once again, we're on a quest for excellence. We want to be a high-performing organization. We want to poise ourselves so in 10 years from now, if we apply for that Malcolm Baldrige Award, we're going to get it. And part of that is being in sync when it comes to things like this. So just briefly, our core value number 1, we engage everyone in an innovative and collaborative environment focused on promoting ownership, leading to measurable improvement of academic, social, and emotional outcomes. 2, we mutually communicate in a timely manner throughout the organization to foster trust, collaboration, growth, and consistency while staying true to our collective vision. We don't have the vision yet. We're going to work on that. 3, we share responsibility to provide clean, updated, and well-maintained workplace. 4, we will demonstrate professionalism that values equity and fosters the social, emotional, and physical safety of all team members. And last, we will interact positively and respectfully to ensure everyone feels acknowledged and valued. And for me, the significance of these 5 core values is that we created it collectively as a team. These are our values. Everyone had a voice. Everyone's voice is now included. Same process for the vision. So we have our goals on the bottom there. That's important. We've established what's important to us. We now have our values, and now we're going to be working towards the visioning piece. In similar fashion, I'm going to every school site, every department, getting input. In May, I'll bring together about a group of 70. They'll synthesize all that input. Your input will be a part of that, and then we will roll out our vision statement. So what is a vision? A vision is a vivid picture of a potentially very different future, right? Because the community has collectively committed to creating it together. And the community involves everyone that's in this space together today. We want to be inclusive, not just of those who are serving within our school sites and with our departments, but we want to be inclusive of those who serve the community as a whole. And so we need your input in creating this. I'm going to be giving you an individual document for you to get your juices flowing as you think this morning. So that's going to be passed out for you now. Where's my helpers? I got you. Outstanding. And there's 4 questions, and there are boxes in the center of your table with writing utensils. And what I would like for you to do is once these documents get out to you, is I want you to take about 90 seconds just to self-reflect on these 4 questions. Take down some notes. I'm not going to be collecting these papers. And then once you have some time to reflect on your own, I'm going to call you back together, and I'm going to give you the directions for the second part of the activity. As you're writing down your final thoughts, I'm going to speak to you a little bit about what the next step of the process is. As a table group, you're going to talk about your responses to the 4 questions, and you're going to need to come to consensus around one response as a group for each question. So you have to come to an agreement. One response for each question. And then you're going to chart that on the charts that are near you. For some of you, they're going to be posted up on the walls close to your table. And you're going to chart, you're going to write number 1, and then you're going to chart what your team has agreed to as the response for number 1. You're going to do the same for 2 through 4. Once your charts are complete, I'm going to reconvene us as a group, and then we will go around the room and we will share what it is that you have made a decision in regards to the response for each question. And there's a lot of value in that, because what you find is that there's a lot of consistency in terms of what we believe needs to happen in the best interest of our community and the role that we play as an organization in making that happen. And it's important for us to be able to hear that from one another. Welcome back. We're going to do a quick whip around the room. If we can try to get it in 30 seconds, that would be awesome. So we're going to go here, and this is our first table.
Number one, a community that raises productive citizens who are respectful, hardworking, and compassionate. Number two, to develop students. Thank you. I was going to say what it's for. What is HUSD's role in our communities, and what do we want to create together? We said to develop student skills that include critical thinking, communication, creativity, collaboration, and to promote industry. What does HUSD need to do to ensure a better future for our students in our community? We just said equity of opportunity, not equity of outcomes, but equity of opportunity. And four, what do we want to create together, and how do we ensure that HUSD becomes premier to build a partnership with families and communities to develop a shared responsibility for success?
Okay, from our group, we have for question number one, community, state, and nation, we want a united and accepting community of the state and the nation. For the role of, oh wait, is it this way? Okay. Okay. For the role of HUSD, we want to educate and foster a positive culture with an understanding of a greater importance in life than just self. For number three, HUSD to do for a better future is to work to instill the values through communication centered around respect for self and community. And we heard the respect with you, that's perfect. And then to work together here is, we love this. This is like the new key phrase, opportunities without obstacles.
Image in our minds of what we want our community, state, and nation to be is to have equity, to be engaging the community. For number two, we want a holistic approach to academic success. Three, a wide variety of opportunities for learning. And four, a safe community that ensures students are ready for college and career.
For number one, we got, for the question, what is the image in our minds of what we want for our community, state, and nation? And our answer was?
Inconclusive partnerships.
The second question was, what is HUSD's role in our communities, and what do we want to create together? And our answer was?
Successful quality education.
Third question, what does HUSD need to do to ensure a better future for our students and community? And the answer?
Communicate opportunities and provide a safe environment.
The last question, what do we want to create together, and how do we ensure that HUSD becomes premier?
Common goals and one community.
No, we had some deep discussions. For the answer to question number one is just opportunity, and I would add hope to that. Make sure that we provide opportunity and hope. The second one is the school district should provide education and support for all students. And the third one, we felt that the school district should develop the whole child. So not only should they be academically proficient, but also social and emotionally healthy in our community. And the last one is just have partnerships for better accountability, and I would include support in that. None of us can do this alone. It takes a whole village, and that's kind of where we're going with that.
Our image for what we want for our community, state, and nation, it's a safe, secure, united, a settled community and state and nation. For number two, what's our role and how do we want to create it together? We want to create a dependable foundation for our future, innovative and united. Number three, to ensure a better future for our students and community, what we need to do, it's a visionary with a focus on student success and to insist on excellence. And number four, what do we want to create together to make sure Hemet is premiers, to provide quality education that promotes accountability and respectability and a common focus on student success.
For number one, what is the image of our minds and what we want for our community, state, and nation? We put to foster a positive, respectful, and educated community. Number two, what is Hemet Unified's role in our communities and what do we want to create together? We want to engage and support all of our students, families, and community members to ensure that diversity and respect for all is promoted. And three, what Hemet Unified needs to do to ensure a better future for our students and community. We had put to provide and ensure personalized education opportunities that lead to a college career focus. And four, what do we want to create together and how to ensure that Hemet Unified becomes premier. We just want to value all the students.
For number one, we have well prepared to thrive in a rapidly changing world, shared focus to prepare all our students for successful pathways to reach their dreams. Number three, forward-thinking community schools preparing all students for the future by providing opportunities, tools, and resources. And our last one, creating together pride, synergy, and commitment for our schools and our community.
For the first prompt said, we really value great learning from great teachers and great schools supported by a great community. For number two, to create a place where people want to come to and come back to. Bringing back the talent that we produce, it not only in our valley, but in all of the system to come back and serve our communities. We also would like to have the life, the soft, and the technical skills to be successful in any environment. Those abilities to interact with people, but also the technical skills to thrive in whatever industry we chose to work in. And last but not least, to saturate our story so our community perception matches the high quality learnings that our students experience.
For the question, what is the image in our minds of what we want for our community, state, and nation, my group came up with a collective voice with prepared students to improve our community, state, and nation.
Number two, what is HUSD's roles in our communities? What do we want to create together? We put create a safe, positive learning environment and to give students opportunities beyond school.
To better our future, we want to provide opportunities for community service that complements high quality teaching.
For number four, the question was, what do we want to create together and how do we ensure that HUSD becomes premier? We need to seek to understand and care about all students, improve learning, and create a safe, positive learning community.
Number one, the image of our community is one of unity, civility, and collaboration taking place in a safe and sustainable way. As far as the role for HUSD, creating students with an identified purpose, who are confident, who have life skills, and providing systems of support to sustain those. What does HUSD need to do to ensure a better future? Being inclusive of all student voices and needs, giving them opportunities to achieve those goals, be life coaches for our students. What do we want to create together, and how do we ensure that HUSD becomes premier? We talked about a world-class education system that was innovative, had an element of relentlessness to it so we don't give up, reputation, culture mindset, optimism, stakeholder involvement, and opportunity.
What do we want? Safety, respect, and values. Value for self and others. Role in our community, educate, especially common sense education, and also guide them. Better future. We felt collaboration is the main one, the collaboration between parents, faculty, community, businesses, and students, especially parents. And what do we want to create together? How do we ensure HUSD is the premier education system here? Is teach and cultivate motivation. And we also put down true parent involvement. Because what we notice is many of the parents these days are becoming more like the children's friends rather than be the parent and pushing it back on the teachers. I think the parents should take the responsibility and also teach these kids confidence and self-esteem.
For what is the image in our minds of what we want for our community, state, and nation? Safe, inclusive, forward-thinking, relational, and student-centered and inclusive. What is HUSD's role in our communities? What do we want to create together? Primary source for education, a pathway to the future for our students. We want to improve the whole child. We hear that theme. Prepare students for the real world and contribute to our community. Number three, what does HUSD need to do to ensure a better future for our students and community? More diverse selection of classes that apply to the real world. Financial literacy is very important for our students. Prepare students for the real world, understand community needs, should be safe, challenging, and rigorous. And last, what do we want to create together and how do we ensure that HUSD becomes premier? It should be inclusive, provide students with options to choose from that are relatable to the real world, resources to grow, include community involvement, opportunity for all students for career and college, and increase in internships.
So what is the image we want for our community, state, and nation? We want the community coming together in knowledge, unity, and responsibility to become productive citizens, and we want to set high expectations. What is our role? HUSD role is to create and provide exciting educational opportunities where the residents, young and old, are responsible and productive. What does HUSD need to ensure a better future for our students and community? Our team said, work and collaborate together to have continuous engagement in community partnerships, have forward thinking with providing systems of support to guide the work. And then what do we want to create together? We want to create a premier district where it's a choice to attend school, where every child counts, everyone honors differences, and everyone is valued.
We agree that we need to focus our attention and our resources to producing contributing citizens who are productive in their career and who find joy in their life and are able to adapt to ever-changing needs. Here in HUSD, we would like systems to ensure educational excellence for all students. There's also a commitment to equity, access, and educational excellence, where we have students who feel safe and welcome at schools. And lastly, we know that we want to continue to collaborate in our planning and inclusiveness of all stakeholders as we offer programs to meet the needs of all students, and that we use data to drive our instruction.
As we wrap up our day today, I do want to thank you for your input. It is very much in line with what we're hearing from our staffs and from our departments, and to me, that's very has a synergetic attribute to it, because when you have people all believing in the same thing, that is where you begin to gain momentum in the work that you're doing. I've spent a lifetime, and I'm not exaggerating, and many of you don't know my personal story, but looking to find a community to place my roots, if you will. And for me and my family, we have made that decision to do that here in Hemet. And it's important for you to know that because it's very intentional. There's a lot of narrative, if you will, outside of the area here in terms of what Hemet is or is not, and I say Hemet, but I speak to all of the areas that we serve. Recently, I was at Claremont Graduate, and a professor there presented me with an article from The Atlantic, and I've now seen that article many times, but it speaks to what happened here in Hemet as we went through the Great Recession. And he asked me, he goes, is this true? In terms of what was included in the article, and it did not paint a very positive picture of what we have here. And I said, well, there are pieces of it that, yes, are factual. I said, but let me tell you about the narrative that people don't hear. And what I shared with him is that I have never been part of a community that is more dedicated to doing what's right by its people. There is a group of people here that extends far and wide that have committed their lives to making a difference. And that is something that is very special. And that is one of the many reasons why we've decided for this to be our home, our permanent home. And so I thank you for your commitment to the whole. I thank you for your commitment to us as Hemet Unified School District, understanding that we are here to serve you. We serve our students, but we serve our communities that are part of Hemet Unified School District. And so as we close today, I want to talk to you in closing about success. We have a lot of ways that we're measured in terms of being successful. We have the accountability system as it relates to the work that's done at the state level. We have indicators that you may see as families, as your children come home, that say if they have or have not been successful in a particular set of courses. But at the end of the day, there's a much broader definition of what success means. And as the adults, we have to be mindful that how we define success may or may not be the same definition that our children have as we serve them. And so with that today, I'm going to close with a video from our students talking about what success means to them. And then once that video closes, our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Daryl Hansen, is going to come up and he's going to close this out.
Success is like the will, well, to me, it's the will to be able to go out and do something that people say you can't do, but then you do it just because you know you can. That's success to me.
I think success means like how like the teacher wants you to learn more and be in second grade like next year. So I think like success is do a great job.
It means making my parents proud of me, making all my teachers be proud of me, and showing everybody that I can do it.
To me, success is not only having like a successful job, but it is also just being happy.
Success means wanting to read.
Trying subjects or topics that you know might be a little hard, but will challenge yourself and help you.
Success means doing what you love and getting to face new challenges every day.
Success means when you overcome something that you tried really hard on.
To me, success is just being able to know that you're a good person, to know that you did everything right, to know that you did your best ability.
Someone that just reached their goals, like they're motivated to reach their goals. That success to me is just aiming for what you want to go for.
Success means furthering your education. Well, in my opinion, does.
Success is not just being able to accomplish something right away. I feel like it's you have to fail in order to be successful, and you have to reach your goals. So whatever your goal is, you can accomplish it, and you'll be successful. It just depends on the person and what they want to do.
Success means to complete a goal in your life that is really important to you.
Accomplish your dreams and never give up.
I would say that success is very personal. It's something that each and every one of us have our own personal goals. So I think success is something that we achieve in ourselves, and that includes being happy, being healthy, in addition to academics and just all sorts of different things. But I think it's personal and something that we all have different goals in life, and achieving them is definitely successful.
Everyone has a different outlook on what it could be and what it couldn't be. But in my opinion, success is having an optimistic outlook on life, being determined to get your goals done, having short goals and long goals, and being able to accomplish them in a timely manner and still succeed.
To me, I feel like success looks like somebody who can help others achieve more. I mean, there's somebody that, may not have everything they want, but as long as they can help somebody get to someplace better, that's successful to me. I'm somebody that just keeps working to make things a little easier for somebody that could be less fortunate.
We want to obviously thank you for your attendance today. It's very special for us to have you all in the room and to get this input. A special thank you to the students that were here. They not only provided some input for us in what we did today, but they were the fantastic jazz music that we heard as we entered in. So congratulations and thank you to them. As we have one more activity for you that is due at the table, everybody at the table has a card, and this is our Plus Delta card, because we'd like to look and get your input on how we move forward with this program. So we'd like you, as you look in there, what worked well for you today? What did you like that we did? What would you hope that we continue as we work through and constantly work to improve this program? And then what change would you like to see in the program as we move forward? So take a minute and fill that out for us. And if you could just leave it at your table and we will collect them all. We're in education. This is your ticket out the door. Thank you again for your attendance today and have a fantastic rest of your day.